Hello, and welcome to The Right Side. The Right Side is a news talk show where we strive to present local, state, and national issues that impact our community. We welcome all points of view to foster greater understanding and awareness. We want to make it clear that the views and opinions expressed on The Right Side do not reflect the views of Taunton Community Access Media. And now, with great pleasure, we welcome you to The Right Side for a discussion of the issues of the day.
Good evening and welcome to The Right Side. The Right Side is a news and conversation program where we discuss situations, local, state, and national events. And just before we start the program and you meet our guest, there are a couple of items I want to mention. Matthew 2540 is located at First Parish Church. Even though we've been lucky this year with some great weather compared to the bad weather we had last year, people are still homeless and they still need some assistance in getting clothing and food. So Matthew 2540 at First Parish Church at Church Green is willing to take anything that you would like to donate, canned foods, blankets, sweaters, make sure they're please clean. And also another group called Taunton Necessities for Life. They are a group of women who take in things that are necessary for families who are in need. Non-perishable foods, toiletries, toothpaste, and so forth. And they gather their individual items on the fourth Thursday of every month at the Old Shaw's Plaza on Winthrop Street. So tonight I want to introduce a good friend of mine. I've known him for about 4, 5, 6 years, I guess now. Yeah, I guess so. And he is the incumbent candidate for 1st Plymouth and Bristol District, Mark Townsend. Mark,
great to see you again,
welcome to
Gene.
The Right Side.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming by.
Great to be back here.
It is, isn't it? I showed you around the studios.
Yeah,
and
beautiful new studio.
Yeah, and wouldn't you like to think that Carver could do this?
Yes, I would.
Mark is also from Carver, and he is the chair for the Plymouth County Republican Club, and also, are you still the chairman of the Carver Republican Town Committee?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Mark, you're running for your first full term?
Yeah, my first full term. Yeah.
What made you decide to run after the death of Mr. Nickerson a couple of years ago? What made you decide to run for state committee?
Well, first of all, if I could just for a minute, Gene, I'd like to explain a little bit about what the state committee is.
Certainly.
Quite frankly, a lot of people have no idea what the state committee is. And the state committee is really the legislative body of the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. We make the rules, we elect the chairman, and every state Senate district has 2 state committee people, a state committee man and a state committee woman. And we act as the liaison with the local Republicans to the party. And we also act as sort of a standing campaign committee for people who want to run for office but don't know where to start. Mm-hmm. Republican people who want to run for office. So that's what we do. It's an unpaid position. There is no salary. So it's a completely volunteer position. And that's what we do. So, I had been the chair of the Carver Republican Town Committee for a while, and I knew Bill well. Yeah. I had been involved with the Plymouth County Republican Club, and when he passed away, I thought it was time to step up and just work. I have a passion for the Republican Party. I work hard at trying to elect more Republicans. That's really my goal, mm-hmm. to elect more Republicans. And I also wanted, quite frankly, to, I don't know if it's the right word, but I wanted to open up the party a little bit. I felt like there was a real separation between Boston and the people in the city and towns down here. Yep. And so that's really why I ran. And I was elected overwhelmingly. We had a caucus mm-hmm. in Bridgewater for the state Senate district, the 1st Plymouth and Bristol district. I was elected overwhelmingly, and I appreciated that very much. And I really worked hard during my term to do that. The very first thing I did as a state committee man was to have a meet and greet with the new party chair, Kirsten Hughes. We had that in Carver. I think you and certainly some people in Taunton attended that. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because when I put that together, a lot of people reached out to me and said, you can't do this. You have to make this a paid event. because you're leaving a lot of money on the table. This should be a fundraiser. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. I said, that's not what I want to do. I want people local active Republicans, candidates, people that are in office, I want them to know who their chairman is, who know what's going on in Boston, and have a relationship back and forth. I want them to be able to meet these people and get an idea of what they're about. So that's what I did. And it was an overwhelming success. That room was absolutely packed.
Yep.
And so that's the very first thing I did. And that's really why I ran. And I think we've been pretty successful at doing that.
Now, the last convention we had 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago? It's about 2 years ago.
Yeah, just about 2 years ago.
Time goes by when you're having fun, huh? There was a sort of a separation, so to speak, my term, between the conservative side and the moderate side. What are you doing to try to bring that back into, bring the moderates into understanding what the conservatives are looking for?
And that separation has been there for a while. It was there prior to when I ran. And when I ran, I talked about that. And I really think the way you bring those people together, at least and for myself, is that you support all Republicans. You don't pick one side or the other. When I try to help the people in the district, or when I run certain events, I don't pick sides. I support the Republicans. If you're a Republican, you have my support, and I'll do what I can to help you. And I think that's how you bring them together. You show that you're not biased against one side or the other. You just do what you can to help everybody, and that's what I do.
Now, running for your first full term, what are you looking at? What do you want to do to continue to build the Ground Roots Party up?
So I think there's a few ways you do that, and quite frankly, a lot of it. I want to continue to do exactly what I've done. One of the first things I did when I ran was that I took a lot of, at least I worked hard to get a lot of the resources that the party had, mailing lists, fundraising lists, things like that weren't available to the local city and town committees, and I got them to release that information. When I first became chairman of the Carver Republican Town Committee, I had to jump through about 60 hoops to get just a mailing list of local Republicans. So that doesn't exist anymore, and that's gone. I believe I've got access from everybody, all the city and town committees. If you want to run for office and you're a Republican, we get you access to those mailing lists. So you have access, you know who the Republicans are, you know who you have to reach out to, you know who door you have to knock on. That's how we build the party. We make resources available to local candidates, and that's how you build a party, by the way. You help local candidates. It's very difficult. We elected a Republican governor during the last election, but we didn't elect any other constitutional officers. And I believe we build a party by electing local people, city councilors, selectmen, school committee people, and we help them win by making the resources that we have available as a party available to them on a local.
So you have a doors open policy that they can contact you at any time.
Absolutely.
When I say they, I mean those considering. Now,
if you want to run for office, or if you're part of a local city or town committee, my door is open, and I'll help you any way I can.
And then they could contact you in which way? Via
they can call me. They can they can email me. They can text me. They can do whatever they want.
What would your email be if we have a person who has that seed, that little seed that's just wants to blossom?
My email is M Townsend, so MTOWNSEND 2010 @gmail.com.
Okay.
And perhaps you could run that at the end. I don't know if it's available to run that on the screen.
No, unfortunately, I didn't think about that, but that's my fault.
Okay. Well, certainly, maybe they could contact the right side if they needed that. They could send an email to the right side.
And I'm glad you brought that up. Our email address for the right side is TauntonRightSideTV@gmail.com. Our Facebook page is www.facebook.com/The Right Side TV, and the Twitter account is The Right Side TV. So it's pretty easy. Just remember The Right Side TV.
Pretty easy to me.
Now, the local. Let's go and get into the state affairs. Sure. The governor has had a pretty smooth ride so far in most cases.
He has.
Does he or even the state committee call upon the different committee people to come up with suggestions on how he can, or even the lieutenant governor can move things along a little bit better? For example, on the T
Yeah, well,
horrible?
that's not really the state committee's role. I mean,
Okay.
the state committee's role is to support local Republicans, people running for office, things like that. When he's calling on people for suggestions on policy or things like that, it's really more the state representatives. Really more someone like Shauna O'Connell or Keiko Oral he would call on than I mean, certainly, any Republican is free to contact the governor's office and make a suggestion.
Yeah.
But really, I think you'd have a lot more. So many people contact the governor's office about so many things that I think you have a lot more suggestions, quite frankly, calling Shauna or
okay.
Keiko and saying, hey, how about this?
But you couldn't filter a suggestion through the party or
oh,
through
sure. I mean, you could always, you could always pass along a suggestion, and certainly if you happen to see somebody and you have an opinion on a subject, you certainly can pass that along. But as a state committee, we're not. We normally don't work on policy. Our goals really are to elect Republicans, support Republicans. I mean, we pass policy on how the party itself will run, but we're really not a legislative body in the same way that Boston is Beacon Hill. We don't make laws.
Oh, okay.
So I think if somebody was concerned about, say, the tea or pensions or the opiate issue, something like that, you want to contact Shauna or Keiko. They're really the ones that make policy.
Oh, okay. Because I wasn't sure if maybe the party, the Boston Mass GOTP would want to get some sort of input, and then they could filter it.
Listen, certainly I think they always value input, but I mean the state committee, Kirsten Hughes, our chairman, I mean, she has no voice on Beacon Hill. Do you know what I mean? That's not. We're not a party to those debates that take place.
Okay. That's not a bad thing for people to know and to understand, that they may be thinking that each individual party, major party, has a say in what goes on.
Absolutely, and that's an important difference. I think so many people don't know what the state committee is. Both the Democrats have a state committee just like the Republicans do, and that really is the purpose. The purpose of those state committees is to support Republicans.
Right. Now, you have to get on the ballot just like anybody else.
That's right.
How do you go about doing that? I know it sounds like a silly question.
No, it's not a silly question, and a lot of people probably think it is, but we collect signatures, just like you would if you wanted to run for city council or school committee here in Taunton. We do the same thing, just on a broader basis. We do it on the state senate.
Now, what are the
district.
towns and the cities that you would represent?
I represent the city of Taunton, and then Berkeley, Bridgewater, Carver, Dighton, Marion, Middleborough, Wareham, and I'm forgetting one. Raynham.
Raynham, okay.
You always forget one.
Yeah, you always do. I don't know if that's eight communities.
9 communities.
Nine
the city of
communities.
Taunton and 8 towns.
Oh, that's
and it's a big district.
It is.
I mean,
It's a
if you
huge
have to drive from a meeting in Wareham out to Dighton, believe me, you've got to drive.
Now, have you been knocking on doors just as if you were a candidate for the state?
Everything you do, yes. I mean, I've knocked on doors. I've made phone calls. I've had fun. I've raised money. I mean, all those things you do when you run for any office.
You're doing
that's what we do. It's a little different because, quite frankly, when you're running for the office, a lot of people don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's true.
But you do the same things you would do in any other race.
So you're going to be on the ballot come
I'm in the March 1st presidential primary ballot.
Okay, we'll discuss more about that right after our break. And we'll be right back to the right side.
When kids are hungry, they're not thinking about math. They're thinking about food. That's why school breakfast and lunch programs like this one, funded by Barrick Gold, are so important. We have several students that they don't eat at home. They don't have food. These are the only meals that they'll eat today. But at least while they're here at school, they don't have to worry about being hungry. They can concentrate on learning. That makes a big difference. Huge difference.
This is your new kitten, or your new puppy. Every day, 70,000 puppies and kittens just like them are born in the U.S. Cute, right? Well, what's not cute is that half of all litters are accidents. And when a kitten has a litter of oopsies and a puppy has a litter of uh-ohs, pretty soon you have thousands and thousands of OMGs. And that leads to millions of pets being killed in shelters each year. But if 80% of pet owners say they believe in spaying and neutering, then what gives? Well, it turns out those sweet little fuzzballs can get pregnant sooner than you think. A lot sooner. But here's the good news. You can stop the accident before it happens. You just have to remember one number. 4, as in 4 months. When you bring home Maggie or Ruby or Puddle or Clyde, Get them fixed at 4 months. It can be old enough to get pregnant, and it's definitely young enough to make a difference. Prevent more, fix at month 4.
Start making your way to the start line.
1, 2, 3, run!
Good evening and welcome back to The Right Side. I'm Gene McCaffrey. I'm your host for this evening. And tonight with us we have the incumbent candidate for the 1st Plymouth and Bristol District for state Republican State Committee man. I should emphasize Republican, huh?
Absolutely.
And Mark Townsend. Mark, thanks again for coming.
Great to be here, Gene.
The Hawkeye of the Iowa caucus this last week, earlier this week. There was a couple of surprises.
It was a surprise. I think, well, but there wasn't a huge surprise, I don't think. There had been a late surge. A lot of people, I think, were thinking that Rubio was surging toward the end. He got a little more percentage-wise, I think, than a lot of people thought. But when you see those surges, a lot of times, when you're going down, they tend to be behind you, and when you're going up, sometimes they trail. They're a couple of points behind where you are. So
Right.
that was he was a couple of points higher. The Trump losing, that was a little bit of a surprise as well. But
it was.
None of those margins, the margins Trump had in Iowa, were never as large as the margins he has in New Hampshire. And that will be the real telling point, I think, for Donald Trump.
And that will be next week.
Yeah, that is next week.
That is next week.
The 9th, I believe.
And that would be, we have, let's see if I can get them. Trump, Cruz, Rubio, Christie,
Carson, Kasich.
Kasich is still in it?
I believe he's still in it. Last time I looked, he was 20% in New Hampshire. He was up
really?
at number 2, I think, according to one poll.
And Santorum is, I guess, considering dropping out.
I thought I had heard he dropped out. I mean, there's been a lot of come and go the last couple of days. It's hard to keep up on it. Rand Paul dropped out today. And,
but I don't know if they'll still be on the ballot. But that'll be
I'm sure I think they're all still on the ballot. I think it's too late to get them off. I'm sure the ballots have been printed for a while.
Want to make any prognostications on this one?
Well,
not the Democrats. It's gonna be easy.
Well, that's fine. But I think Donald Trump has to win by a good margin. He's been up by 20 odd points, and depending on which poll you look at. And I think for him, he needs to hold that lead. If he was, I hear that Rubio is surging up there. I think that tends to happen after after one primary caucus to the next, right?
Yep.
The winner tends to get a surge in the next one, and I think that's happening for Rubio. Does that prop him up to second place or get him within 10 points of Donald Trump? Well, time will tell.
There's no favorite son candidate in the Republican Party.
No, there isn't.
As opposed to the Democrats.
That's exactly right.
Because you could consider Sanders, even though he's from Vermont, a favorite son.
I think he's certainly the favorite son in New Hampshire.
In New Hampshire.
Yeah, and
by the way, those of you who don't know what a favorite son is, it's a person, a candidate who might live in that particular state. Like in this case, nobody from New Hampshire is running, but you have Senator Sanders from Vermont, a neighbor next state.
And certainly
next
Mitt
door.
Romney was the favorite son last time.
Right, exactly. That's right. He was in
Massachusetts.
Massachusetts, yep.
Yeah.
And so that's what a favorite son is considered, if you're not sure exactly what that is. Sanders would be considered a favorite son, even though the mass media is not saying that. But it looks like he has a pretty good chance of winning New Hampshire over Hillary Clinton.
I think he better if he wants to continue his candidacy. If he were to lose New Hampshire, I think it's all over.
Well, let's talk about Massachusetts. Our primaries March 1st. And as far as we know, the same candidates will be appearing on the ballot.
I think they'll all be on the ballot. I'm sure another one or two may drop out by then, I think.
Do you have any inkling about? I don't feel anything here in Massachusetts.
Well, I know a lot of the local people I talk to seem to be Rubio. I have not endorsed a candidate. I don't plan on endorsing a candidate. Quite frankly, I've been busy enough with my own race that I haven't had a time to worry about who's going to win the presidential primary. But a lot of locals I talk to seem to favor Rubio. I know Keiko Oral, Gil Ponce over in Berkeley. There's a lot of people I know that seem to favor Rubio. So he seems to be doing well in Massachusetts. I think he might be the favorite today, but there hasn't been a lot of polling in Massachusetts.
No, there hasn't been, which is odd.
And well,
at this point, I think.
And I'm sure there will be. I think everyone in the Republican Party has been worried about Iowa and New Hampshire, and for several of them, it's really a make or break. If you show up and after getting 1% or 2% in Iowa, if you go to New Hampshire and get another % or 2, where does your campaign go? So you have to. I don't think anyone's worried about anything but New Hampshire right now.
And after the primary next week, then it's Massachusetts.
Well, Massachusetts is
Super Tuesday.
Super Tuesday. So there's a number of them all on that day.
Okay, and well, I only found out today that Trump opened up an office in Easton, which tells me that at least he's interested in not abandoning the state,
well,
like most candidates have done in the past.
Well, because some of them go down south. They all have. I think they all have targeted states where they think they can do well. But listen, our delegates are just as good as anybody else's delegates, and I'm glad to see people showing an interest in Massachusetts.
Okay, let's talk about delegates.
Okay.
How do our delegates established or picked, or how does the Mass GOP do that?
So our delegates will be picked at a delegate caucus, which for the 4th Congressional District, I believe, is going to be in North Attleboro.
Okay. That would be Taunton area.
Taunton, yep. Yes, it will. And there's a chance now some of these locations are going to change based on availability and certain things going on. I know I've heard some people talk about the North Attleboro facility that they think there may not be enough parking. I know
That's the high school, you said?
The middle school, I believe. And I looked into it myself, and I didn't think there'd be enough parking there. And I suggested we might want to look at some alternate locations.
The last one was at the high school, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, and there was plenty of parking.
I think it was. And so we'll see. And certainly that will be publicly announced, and everyone will have an ample notice.
Okay, how would a delegate be picked? Are they elected by
Well, no, they are not. So there will be a caucus.
Okay.
You'll show up at a caucus. You have to be a registered Republican, and you'll show up. You'll check in. You'll show photo identification, and you'll be admitted to the caucus, and then you can run.
Campaign as well.
Well, a lot of people campaign. In fact, one of the things that went on at the state committee meeting, one of the last state committees we had was a back and forth about how to pick these delegates.
Okay.
And,
can we get into that?
We sure can.
Okay.
And several people, myself included, favored a different way. We favored the candidates being able to choose some of their own delegates, and not having the caucus. And I favored that, and I'll tell you why I favored it. In 2012, in the 2012 presidential primary, just over 2,200 people voted here in Taunton, just Taunton. Okay, the numbers in the 4th Congressional District are obviously much, much larger, but 2,200 voters just here in Taunton. Yeah. Okay, you got a couple hundred people that show up at these caucuses. So, and it's important to think when you think about delegates, to think of what the delegates are doing at the convention. Right? You don't just pick the candidate for president. You really don't have in Massachusetts. You're pledged to a certain candidate when you go to the convention.
So if let's say Trump wins the primary,
yeah. If Gene McCafferty is a delegate to the convention, and you're a Trump delegate, you have to vote for Trump on the first ballot, unless Trump releases you. If he drops out along the way, and then you're free to do what you want. If Trump is there, then you're pledged to Trump on that first ballot.
Okay.
But what you're not pledged on, a lot of other things go on at these conventions. Rules are, the rules that govern the party are voted on. We have the platform is voted on, and every one of these candidates has different thoughts on what that platform should be. So that's why I thought that, when you're a voter and you go to the polls and you vote for whoever it is, you vote for Ted Cruz. Well, Ted Cruz feels a certain way about that platform. And I think your vote needs to be represented there at that convention.
Yeah.
The way we do it now with the delegate caucuses, you throw aside those 2,200 voters in Taunton, you get a couple of hundred people that show up at the caucus, and they, if you can get the right people to come vote for you, you win. At the caucus I was at last time, you had candidates who literally threw a breakfast and bussed people to the caucus to vote for them. Okay, so a small guy, you or I don't know about you, but I can't afford a bus to bus my delegates in, my people in to vote for me. So there were some people that made the argument that these caucus, the way we wanted to do it, or the way I favored letting the candidates pick some of the delegates, was somehow enabling big money donors. That's not at all what it was about. What it was about is giving voters representation at that convention.
Okay.
I favored, if someone gets 10% of the voters, if it's Rand Paul, if it's Cruz, if it's Rubio, whoever it is, I thought those voters should be represented at the convention.
Okay.
And that's,
some other states do that. I believe.
some states do it. Some states it's on the ballot. Some states you run on the ballot as a delegate. So it's done in a number of different ways.
Okay.
But that's not the way that failed.
Okay.
And we will continue with the caucus process as we've had in the past. So we will have a caucus. You will check in if you wish to go as a Republican. If you'd like to run, you just let people know that, yes, I'm interested in running. You'll have an opportunity to make a 1 minute or so speech if you like. You don't have to. And then people will vote for delegates.
That's a national delegate.
That's a national
Okay.
delegate.
Then, if that individual is picked as a national delegate, he would have to pay his own way to Cleveland?
It's 100%. The party provides no funds
okay.
at all, so you have to pay your own way,
Okay.
and you will be pledged to a certain. So you'll be pledged to a certain candidate. So you would run as a Trump delegate or a Cruz delegate or.
So if Taunton goes to Trump, and I'm elected as a delegate from Taunton?
Well, no, it's not. It's done on a congressional district,
okay.
not by cities and towns.
Oh,
so
okay.
Your delegates will be apportioned depending on how that congressional district goes.
Okay.
So that's how it will go. But that's, again, my concern is that, yes, you might run as you could have Marco Rubio get a certain percentage of the vote, but not have any representation in delegates. That people were him. They might have to vote for him for president, but they might not represent his views as far as the platform and things like that go. And that was my concern.
So you want to give
many
sort
of us
of an
concern.
independent,
I want.
if
one thing
he
that
becomes a delegate for Trump, and Trump gets, I become the 10% part of that.
No.
It's-
I always.
Hopefully I'm understanding
one
that.
thing I've always been concerned about, and maybe it's part of my wanting the party to be more open, and I want voters to be represented. I never want to see a vote sort of discounted, and that's why I think what we do as a party needs to represent what the voters do. And if you like it or you agree with it or don't disagree with it, I want that to happen. So
Okay.
anyway.
Well, we just have a couple of minutes to go, Mark, but I want to mention a couple of things one more time before I give you the floor. Matthew 25:40, as you know, even though we've had a good winter this year, they are still looking for non-perishable foods, clothing items, blankets, and so forth. And also Taunton Necessities for Life, the last Saturday of each month. The ladies collect non-perishable foods, toiletries, and so forth for people and families in need. And our email address, we really want to have some sort of feedback from you, please. If you want more information from about Mark and about the Mass GOP, you can contact us at TauntonRightSideTV@gmail.com. Facebook page is The Right Side TV, and Twitter page The Right Side TV. Mark, you have the floor for about 45 seconds.
Oh, great.
Tell us why you want running and what you want to do.
Great. Well, for the last 3 years while I've been on the state committee, I've dedicated myself to the Republican Party, electing more Republicans, and opening up the party. I've been endorsed by more than 50 Republicans here in the district, including a number of Republicans here in Taunton. Representative Shauna O'Connell, Representative Keiko Oral, City Councilors Pottier and McCall. So that's what I want to continue. I want to open the party. I want to elect more Republicans. I want to direct party resources to help local Republicans. And I ask for your vote on March 1st. And I appreciate everyone here at the Right Side giving me the opportunity to talk to the voters of Taunton.
Tell your, it would be Mark Townsend.
Again, my name is Mark Townsend. You can reach me, email mtownsend2010@gmail.com.
Well, thank you, Mark. We appreciate you coming.
Thank you, Gene.
And don't be so jealous of our studios.
I'm still
please.
jealous.
Well, this is The Right Side, and I want to thank you for coming and watching the program again tonight. And hopefully in 2 weeks, we will have our annual primary prognostication, and we're waiting for some answers back to a couple of our guests. And that's always a lot of fun. So until then, I want to say good night from the right side.
The opinions you heard are solely ours, and they do not reflect the views and opinions of Taunton Community Access and Media. If you wish to contact us with reactions, thoughts, or ideas, visit our social media site, facebook.com, The Right Side TV, or on Twitter, @The Right Side TV. Thank you for tuning into The Right Side, and we invite you to tune in to our next show.